and introduce myself. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brooke Gooding. I'm the VP of Real Estate here at LandGate. And I've been here about 4 years now. And when I first joined LandGate, I knew absolutely nothing about energy. I came from a very different sales background and ended up starting at the bottom level here at LandGate, answering the phones and learning a ton about energy in the process, and have moved my way up. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Jordan, if you don't mind, thank you so much. And essentially, how I've learned so much about energy is from LandGate's data. So LandGate is a data analytics company and a competitive marketplace. And the data that we have over 300 different data sets in solar, wind, carbon, and minerals. And with these data sets, I've been able to learn different variations about properties that other folks aren't necessarily looking at. When we're looking at land, it's what's the highest and best use of the land. And not a lot of folks out there, when they're purchasing land, even know there's an abandoned well on their property, or that there's solar potential there, or that they could sell their carbon credits, etc. From what I understand, underwriters aren't even considering this when they're writing their reports. So LandGate really gives you a competitive edge. So what we've done with this data is we've actually valued every parcel in the United States for how much you could get on a solar, wind, carbon, and mineral lease. We're currently also working on EV charging valuations and battery storage valuations. Those should be coming soon. We're very excited. And the reason why we did this is folks weren't selling their minerals, for instance, or folks were scared to lease their land for solar, et cetera, because they didn't know the value. And we don't believe your neighbor's negotiating skills should be what dictates what you get on a solar lease, a mineral lease, a wind lease, whatever it is. So this data provides you with essentially scientists and engineers that helps you to understand what the value is, so that you have an upper hand in the negotiations and aren't leaving money on the table for your clients. So on top of being a data analytics company, LandGate is also a competitive marketplace. So I just turned on our listings here, and momentarily we're going to see these little green dots. These green dots are agents like yourselves and landowners raising their hand to either sell their land or to lease their land for solar, wind, carbon, water, oil, and gas, and mining. And what's different about listing on LandGate is you can list for sale or the client's land for lease. There's not a lot of places out there where you can do this. And what makes LandGate very unique is we don't just work with landowners and agents. We have a whole nother team, our energy team, who works with solar developers, mineral buyers, wind developers, institutional investors, and they are attracted to LandGate for the data, of course, but what attracts them more are the leads. They can look at all of these leads with a heat map, for instance, that shows them where the most valuable leads are. So this heat map I just turned on, we value all the parcels, and then we created a heat map to go over this heat map where if something's in a white area, probably unlikely you're going to get a lease for solar in this instance. Where if you're in a dark green area, dark green means money, highly likely you're going to get a lease. So these buyers come to LandGate and they look at your listings. And they see, okay, which listings do I want to reach out to? Which ones would I want to purchase? Which ones would I want to lease? And this is a whole nother conversation you can now have with your landowners. You know, those landowners you wanted to work with for years who just are stubborn and do not want to sell their land, you can now have a totally different conversation with them of, hey, I'm not asking you to lease or to sell your land, but what if we could lease it and make more revenues? And what's absolutely beautiful about listing your land on LandGate, whether it's for lease or sale, it's free. Anyone can come to LandGate and you can list on here at any time And here in just a little bit, I'll show you how you can go ahead and list on LandGate. I've seen remarkable transactions on this site because these buyers that come to LandGate, these are a unique set of buyers. They look at land in a completely different lens. For instance, one of my favorite transactions so far on LandGate is there is a gentleman with about 250 acres right next to his substation, 3 transmission lines running through it. Not the prettiest piece of property, honestly. However, he listed it on LandGate and he was offered $64,000 an acre for 15 acres next to that substation because this particular developer wanted to put battery storage on that land. On top of that, they leased his remaining acreage for $1,000 an acre on a 30-year solar lease. So that's a major commission right there. You could be paid annually for 30 years on a solar lease, for instance. So listing on LandGate is very powerful. That is one thing you want to do. It is absolutely free. If you want access to the data I'm showing you for a limited time, it's only 25 bucks a month right now. We just started this promotion and you get full access to our team. We understand that I would say about 90% of agents who come and work with us, they've never done a solar, wind, carbon, or mineral deal. And the thing is you don't have to be an expert. That's what we're here for. So what they have done is on LandGate, you can actually create portfolios here. And when you create these portfolios, we show you the different summaries here. You can see the ownership information of all the parcels, on the land values, what kind of topography is on the land, what tree types, the age of the tree or average age of the trees, etc. You can see a ton of data. And what we've done is we've condensed this in a report that a lot of agents are actually providing to their landowners in any kind of presentation where, for instance, if you're wanting to help sell their land, they're adding this report where you can add your branding to this report. You can add your headshot, a biography. You can go through and see the summaries of the land and share this with your landowner. It's very condensed, easy to digest and read, and it gives them high level information that most of the competition isn't showing them. It really sets you apart because the landowners feel, oh, hey, you're looking at different ways I can make revenues off my land. This is very unique. And the thing is with working with us, you get full support. When you call, you're calling me, you're calling my colleague Thomas. You're not talking to a chat bot, excuse me. We do one-on-ones, trainings, etc. We're happy to help. We've helped many. The agents that I find are the most successful, honestly, they use the KISS philosophy. We had a gentleman, one of our influencers, Neil Hogger, on. He's an agent out of Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying, you know, like when folks ask me questions about carbon, I don't always know. I just keep it simple and let them know, look, I work with this team. I have a place where I can go ahead and list the land and we can see what kind of bites we can get. So I'm gonna go ahead.
We do have a quick question asked. They ask, does LandGate do anything to vet the person listing the land actually represents or has a relationship with the landowner?
Great question. The easy answer, no, we do not. So LandGate does not earn commissions of any kind. We work on a subscription-based service. So we are only paid subscriptions and we provide the marketplace. Now, landowners do organically come to LandGate and they look at their parcels and they do what we call claim ownership of them to see their values. Now, a lot of these landowners, they're a little intimidated to negotiate deals on their own, for instance. So if somebody wants to work with a land professional that represents them, we go ahead and get them in touch with one of our subscribers, a land professional that is partnered with us that can help them through that process and list it. And what's been really cool to see with these leads is, I know you guys know in your business, a lead that's a lead is a lead. I actually just had a meeting with one of our subscribers this morning. His name is Wayne Dunson, and he's an agent out of Texas. And we asked him to work with a lead in Texas. And honestly, it was a property, these folks were very interested in solar. It was highly unlikely they were ever gonna get a solar lease. And you know, Wayne printed them off a report. He went over the land with them. He let them know, listen, it's very doubtful that I can get you any kind of a lease for renewables, essentially based on this data in this report. And the landowners were like, okay, fair enough. Can you sell it for us? Went, absolutely. He actually, I believe, is closing on it this weekend. So what these relationships can do with landowners, I mean, landowners just want to understand, like, okay, what can I do with my land? It's not always going to be renewables. It could be hunting and fishing. It could be better off just selling it, whatever it is. And it's a great way of communicating with them at the end of the day. Great question. And guys and gals, if any of you have questions, the more you guys ask questions, we found the more interactive these webinars are, and the better it is for everybody. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. Again, most agents who have come to work with us, 90% of them never even seen a solar lease or a solar offer or a mineral deal, etc. Believe me, there's no dumb questions whatsoever. If you don't know what a substation is, ask. I'm happy to answer. So, if there aren't any questions, or Jordan, is there another one?
Yes, one just came in from Robert. They ask, how do I see the key drivers for a particular price per acre per year estimate, for example, for a solar lease?
So the key drivers, I would say, if you end up subscribing to our data or are a subscriber, we have the estimated solar on right now. This is the heat map. Now we show you the solar irradiance, which this is how the sunlight hits the land. Okay. So red, essentially, you get a lot of sunlight. Yellow, not as sunny. Now, what's very interesting about solar, it's not always the sunlight and how it hits the land that dictates where a solar farm is going to be built. For instance, if I scroll out here and I'm looking at this solar irradiance, as we go up north in our nation, there's not as much sunlight in places like Minnesota, right? However, I'm just going to turn off these leads and clean this map up just a little bit here. And I'm going to turn on our electrical infrastructure so you can see this. I'm going to zoom in on Minnesota. All these little green guys here, these are solar farms. Minnesota has no sunlight, but it is saturated with solar farms. The reason why is because in every state, well, not every state, there are incentives in some states to build solar farms. So I'm gonna head back to our parcel we made here. And if I go to electrical infrastructure on this particular portfolio I've created, I'm gonna scroll down and I'm gonna look at, all right, we got the distance to the substation. We normally have the distance to the transmission line right here. Right now, our developers are tweaking some stuff in here. Normally, that does show the distance. This red line is a transmission line. It's on the property. It's a zero distance. Now, if we come to the bottom, we have state and local incentives. In the state of Texas, developers are paid an extra $1.32 per megawatt hour produced on top of what they're charging consumers for electricity. So in this area in Texas, developers are literally being paid to build solar farms. In Minnesota, why you see all those farms is because the incentive is $110 per megawatt hour. So we look at what drives it is also, so the incentives, the distance between the substations, transmission lines, price of electricity in the area, tax incentives in the state, those are going to be your biggest drivers and can be found in the summaries here. Great question. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the listing process and show you guys how simple this is. If you're a subscriber, you can list from your Power CRM table. This little world here is how you would go ahead and start a listing. If you aren't a subscriber and looking to do free listings, you would select create a listing here at the top. Right here, all we offer now are self-managed listings. These are free listings, essentially, is all this means. So you agree, you go ahead and hit this next button here. And next, we're going to have the property selection here momentarily. So I'm going to click add, edit, and remove property outlines. So you can look up land by county, by town, by zip code, by parcel number, or by address. You can custom draw a listing. I'm actually going to hit parcel here. And I'm just going to zoom into Texas in a particular area. And I'm going to go ahead and select the parcels that I would like in my listing. So once I've selected those parcels, let's say that I don't want to sell this entire thing. We have two options. In the listing description, we can say 50% of the land is for sale or for lease, or we can clear this and we can actually go ahead and custom draw around it if you would prefer. So you do have those options. Not sometimes here and there, the parcel outlines don't entirely match exactly what you want to sell. So we have that custom draw feature in there for you. All right, so once you've selected your parcels, you're going to go ahead and hit update in the bottom right corner. All right, looks good. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. Now, this page here is asking about the surface ownership and the mineral ownership. If you know the mineral ownership, great. If not, let it default at 100%. In our next UI, I believe we're going to go ahead and get rid of this push in our next, or excuse me, this page in our next UI push.
Correct.
So go ahead and hit next. Oh, thank you, Jordan. So on this page, this is asking what resources do you want to list? If this is a land for sale listing, you hit sell underneath land. If somebody is interested in lease in any of these segments, you would hit the lease button. Now, for sell under oil and gas, that means your mineral owner wants to sell their oil and gas mineral, or excuse me, their mineral rights. For sell under wind and solar, it's a little different. What that means is that the land is already currently leased for wind or solar, and they're interested in selling that solar or wind lease. It's not to sell the solar or wind rights, because in most of the country, you can't sever the wind or solar rights. So again, selling is selling the lease itself. Lease is you're interested in receiving lease offers. Carbon, this will change to also lease, but essentially selling your carbon credits is the same as leasing your carbon credits. So once you've selected the segments that you would like to list, you'll go ahead and hit next. This page is asking if any of the parcels have been leased in the past. If you know and you want to fill it out, great. This is another page that we will be getting rid of in our next UI push. So if you don't want to fill it out, that's fine. Just hit the next button in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, for listing title, you can name this the same way you would name it in the MLS. You can list it by address. You can be creative with it. I'm just going to name it Airedale, Texas. A great solar opportunity. And I'm going to switch this to Nolan because we selected a property in Nolan. Now, when it says listing type, typically you'll have only one option, land for lease for a solar farm. Now, in the description, I recommend keeping it simple. How many acres is it? Where is it located? And what does the landowner want to do? Do they want to lease? Do they want to receive purchase offers or both? So for this particular parcel, or for these parcels, I'm saying 161 acres located in, we'll say, Nolan, Texas, is available for purchase and lease offers. If you have a subscription or want to highlight this, you can. You don't have to. I say the property is within 4 miles of a substation and has a transmission line running through the property just to highlight it. Now, the thing is the buyers on LandGate, they have access to the data. They can see that it's next to a substation, what the proximity is, and if there's transmission lines running through the property, they can see the data is my point. Now, for uploading documents, if you do have any documents that you'd like to upload, here's where you would do it. If you want to add pictures, you absolutely can. The thing with these buyers is that they typically are looking at the data. It's not usually an emotional purchase. So pictures aren't really a big thing. They typically are kind of like, that's great. I don't care. I know that it's near a substation and that substation has capacity. That's all I care about. So you don't really actually have to worry about adding too many pictures. If you don't want to add any documents, you don't have to. No worries. Now, where it says net reserves, PV10 and IRR, this is more for when you are focusing on minerals. We're actually going to get rid of these. You can absolutely ignore this. Now, net acres to list, like I was saying before, you could, if the buyer, or excuse me, if the seller is only interested in selling 50% of their property, here's where you could put 205 acres is actually what they're willing to sell. Now, asking price. When it's a lease offer in particular, I personally recommend that you don't put an asking price here. I recommend hitting it as make an offer. Because in the past, what I've seen is when there's been an asking price for a lease, the developer will offer that price. And when the agent has come back to negotiate, the buyer's like, no, you put an asking price and I gave you that price. So make an offer, bring your highest and best offer is what I recommend. Now, right now, how it works is if you have multiple resources, you do have to fill out a couple of the listings. In our next UI push, there's going to be a button, don't worry, where it just says, go ahead and duplicate that listing into the other resources. So for right now, what I recommend is when you have a title, making it broad as possible and adding it, and also creating a broad listing description and copying and pasting it. Down here, select land for sale. If you have a price for the sale, go ahead and add it. Again, because buyers look at land in a different lens and see premiums and things like power plants that most people see as an eyesore, or for instance, dump sites where no one would want to buy land next to that, but there's programs that incentivize developers to purchase or lease that land to build a solar farm on it. I go ahead and make an offer is what I would personally recommend. It's up to you ultimately. Now, once you've filled out all of this, you'll go ahead and hit the next button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll get to review your listings. And then you go ahead and hit submit. Once it's done uploading, the listings are going to show up in your listing profile. You can edit, delete, or mark your listings as closed at any time. You do not have to be a subscriber to do this. Anyone can do this. You just click on your name in the upper right-hand corner of LandGate and hit my listings and parcels, and this is where this will be stored. You can edit your listings if you want to add documents at a later date, you want to change the acreage, whatever it is you want to do. You can delete them and you can mark them as sold once you get that commission. If you have started any listings, we save them for you in your draft listing so you can come back to them and finish it when you're ready. So that's how you create a listing on LandGate. Are there any questions?
We do have one question from Larry asking, are those maps, the county maps on each county's website? When we were viewing the listings, yeah.
Great question. So Larry, the one data set LandGate doesn't own is the parcel data. We purchase our parcel data from a company called CoreLogic. And I will say they had the best rural data we could find by far. They did very well with it. We're a data company, so we want to find the best source possible. And the way I understand they get the data is at the county level. Now, with that being said, there are a few counties out there that still work kind of in the non-tech age, where, for instance, if you want to get in the 911 database, you still have to mail the county clerk office. They won't accept anything online. So if they don't have online data, we won't have that county data. Or if somebody sold their land yesterday, it might take a hot minute for that to update, essentially. So how I understand CoreLogic gets that data is on the county level, and it's available, I would say 95% of the time. Great question.
And then we have one more from Mason. They ask, how does the lead come to you if someone is interested in your property that is listed?
Great question. So you would go ahead and click on your listing, and it takes about 15 minutes to process. Give me 1 second here. I will show you on one of the other listings. So I'm just going to pop these on real quick and click on a green dot. Give me just a second. So when I click on this listing, how it works is if a buyer is interested in contacting you, they press this button, contact seller. And they're going to contact Jimmy Smith. They get Jimmy's email and phone number, and they're going to contact him directly. So at this point in time, they're like LandGate has nothing to do with this. about like, we don't in any way like get in the middle of it. It goes directly to you to answer that question. Great question. Is there another one, Jordan?
No, that's all for now. Larry just said, thanks, Brooke, for answering his
Oh,
question. Yeah.
absolutely. Now, does anyone have any other questions before we end up closing up here? All right. I believe Jordan will be sending an email. If any of you do have questions, want to set up a one-on-one, a demo, a working session, please feel free. With listing on LandGate, you can do this individually. We also do partner with brokerages, MLSs, or listing sites for free. If you have a brokerage with a large amount of listings where you'd just rather push the listings to LandGate, we're happy to do that for you. Just let us know. No, we're definitely here for you all, and please email whatever you need.
I'll be sending out a follow-up email on Friday with this recording, and I'll have Brooke's contact information, so you can feel free to contact her via email or even book a time with her to speak one-on-one.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jordan. And thank you all for joining. Reach out as you have questions. Thank you for your time.